I've had a lot of interesting questions with people asking around what does a Sharia law-based society look like? And a lot of people in the UK are very threatened by it. Now, I have learned a little bit around Sharia society, but I've recently done a very deep dive into really comparing capitalism, which is how we live now, and Sharia society, and really what are the main differences. So I wanted to share some learnings that I've made and share it with everyone, just so that you guys get a clearer idea of what a Sharia-based society looks like, because I think people have a very negative impression of it generally. So let's go through a few areas of where Sharia society operates. I'm going to be doing a 5-part video series. Today we're going to cover the core philosophies of capitalism and Sharia society. Starting with the purpose of capitalist society, it's to express individual freedom and individual growth alongside economic growth. That's the main purpose of a capitalist society. Authority comes from human-made law. And of course, this is adjusted and changed over many hundreds of years. Around the late 1800s, we've of course had the Industrial Revolution, which is a lot of what we're seeing in society now, obviously just at a way more technological level. The way I would look at it is we are technological giants in the capitalist world. Success metric of capitalist society working is GDP, gross domestic product, which would be like the financial status of a particular country, productivity of a country, and then also consumption, which is very interesting. Now, the moral framework is that it's through personal choice. People can make and have the individual freedoms to make the choices that they want to, and law will intervene only when harm is evidently clear to somebody else. So it's more of a harm principle as to when somebody's going to intervene. The purpose of Sharia society is to establish justice and obedience to Allah. Authority comes from divine law, which references the Quran and the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And this is actually applied through scholars that help us to actually implement this into our daily life. So what is the success metric for Sharia law? It is dignity, righteousness, and justice. As far as moral framework, it's based on objective truth. So it's right and wrong. It's a lot more black and white thinking than what a capitalist society operates from. What's quite interesting to me when reflecting on both of those is that capitalism is really based on more financial and individual personal freedoms, which can typically come from a place of human preference, which can really bleed into human desire. And that's where we can start to get into really tricky topics. So that's why you see lots of alcohol, gambling. A lot of these industries are actually booming right now because everything is based around consumption and boosting economic growth. Whereas a Sharia society, whereas it might not have as much money circulating in the economy, it will focus on the quality of its deeds and making sure we're doing right from a humanitarian aspect. So that was more of the interesting areas that I discovered, and let me know what takeaways you've got. Okay, so here's part 2 of the Sharia-based series. Now we're going to be covering the economics of capitalism and Sharia society, and really what are those main differences. Starting with capitalism, the purpose is maximizing economic growth and profitability overall. Now, where does the authority come from in the capitalist world? It will come from individual markets, it will come from contracts between different companies and financial institutions, for example, like a lot of banks that will control how finances work. Now, where does a success metric come from in the capitalist world? It's going to be economic growth as far as GDP, ROI, and then shareholder value. Now, where is its moral framework in capitalist society? As long as it's within the legal system and it's doing things in a proper way, then it's permissible. It doesn't always matter the necessary niche as to how things are being sold, but as long as the conduct of business is proper, then it's okay to do the business. Now, what is the purpose of a Sharia society economically? It's going to be focused on economic justice and circulation of wealth between different parties and people. Where does authority come from? Of course, it is going to be from the Quran and the hadiths of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. That's where all of the guidance will come from economically. How do we define success from a Sharia society perspective economically? First of all, there's a fair circulation of wealth through society. So there's a real emphasis and value on fairness and reduction of poverty. These are the things that really determine how successful a society is in Sharia-based law. The moral framework for Sharia-based society on the economic side. Now, yes, legal is very important. It's very similar to capitalist society, and that it has to be done in a proper business practice and make sure it follows the exact land and the laws that are involved there. But what's very important is that the harm side and the moral side is just as important. Like, how much does it actually exploit a particular person? How much harm does it cause them? So those are the different economic sides. Let me know your thoughts. I particularly like the fact that yes, while there's so much more money that can be made in a capitalist society, it really does focus on it circulating properly. Now, it's not communism by any means. there's still the emphasis on competition, building value. Those things are still very important in Sharia society, but more so it does emphasize the fact on supporting people that are in tough positions and making sure that there's no ethical harm upon a person as far as the industry, which I really like. It does protect people a lot as opposed to businesses. Okay, so this is part 3 of the comparison between Sharia society and a capitalist society. Now, it's all on politics, not the most fun topic to talk about, but it is very important because a lot of people do mistreat Sharia in saying that it's more corrupt, it's damaging towards people. And unfortunately, a lot of countries dress Islam up in a way that suits them to uphold their own corruption. So let's go through the comparison. Now, a capitalist society is based on liberal democracy. So the way that leadership works is that it's voted in by the opinions of others in society. Now, we all have freedom of choice. We're all able to vote. Here in the UK, obviously, we can do that. And it's all focusing on who is going to, in the view of the people, going to be the best fit for actually running the country. And interestingly enough, leadership in this country, especially in the US also, it's a position that actually is to be earned, right? So every 2-3 years, whenever the voting is done to elect a prime minister or a president, typically what will happen is as soon as the role is earned, people will do whatever it takes to earn the favors of others, to earn the votes of others through saying all of the different things they need to say. And as soon as they earn the position, then they have the power to do whatever they need to do because they're actually in the position. And that's why you might see the difference in people saying things they're going to do versus differences when they actually get the position. For a Sharia society, the idea is to make sure that we uphold justice and social order. Those are the things that are really important. And the guidances come all from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. Now, what's interesting is that it's not focused on getting to a position of power. Leadership in Islam is all about having a constant burden because you are responsible for so many different parties of society that you need to uphold based on what the Quran says. So what's extremely important is that because it's under the divine law of Allah, we can't transgress, we can't corrupt, we can't utilize our power and start expressing it in a way where we can start doing what we want to other people. Because there is a lot of limitations, around things that we can and can't do, it means that we have to be very protective and conservative on what we actually do and the actions that are taken in leadership. So we don't look at it as a position that needs to constantly go out and be earned, but it's when we are in that role, we feel that burden and we operate from a place of integrity. And if not, then we're failing ourselves, failing the people, but most importantly, we're failing Allah. Okay, so here's part 4 of the differences between Sharia law and capitalism. Some of the things that I learned around the law and justice side, I'm going to be sharing with you guys. Now, for capitalism, the priority is to make sure that law is sustained and protecting the rights of human beings and individuals. Authority is going to obviously come from the courts, presidents, legislatures, all of those different things. Success of a proper legal structure in capitalism is based on legal compliance and conviction rates. Now, what's quite interesting is the moral framework for capitalism is that it actually evolves with society. So, of course, there's always different things that come up with morality. There's different issues that arise. So it evolves with society. And this is why you see the introduction of so many different laws through different years. Now, for a Sharia society, it's all about, yes, establishing social justice, but it's the prevention of harmful things. And this is a very, very important distinction. Now, where authority comes from is obviously from divine revelation of Allah and the jurisprudence, right? So the system and knowledge of that particular structure through the Quran and obviously the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. Now, the success metric is justice, deterrence, and most importantly, social stability. It's interesting with the moral framework, a lot of people do typically say that Islam is extremely harsh and the punishments are totally unfair for the actions that are being done. Now, the goal of Islam is very straightforward. It's making sure that there is fixed moral boundaries, but this is where people don't usually understand it. There is mercy and there's actually a very thorough process in making sure that those actions should be punished. And it's not as if Islam wants to constantly punish people. There is actually a very strict process and thorough process in making sure that that person doesn't need to be punished. And if they do, it's because they've actually done it and through harmful intent. So interestingly, the observations I've gathered from both of those is that Islam is more on the aspect of prevention and utilizing the law of Allah in order to make sure that they uphold justice, whereas for capitalism, there's a lot of KPIs and success metrics around conviction rates, a lot of the numbers, and being more reactionary to certain things and moving with society as to upholding straight moral principles.